I don't know if they enjoyed patch day, but I sure as hell did. This patch day is awesome. I love the new F-18. Hello. I am Aoyalaipe, and I like to hop into top tier matches in War Thunder and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. Welcome to my channel. Alright, so welcome to the new patch. This is going to be a long video, so let's just go ahead and fast forward right to the action. Now, I got the new Finnish F-18C here, and this plane has gotten a lot of hate. A lot of people thought it was going to suck, it's going to be worse than the American F-18C, it's just going to be a terrible plane. Yeah, so I figured it'd be funny if the very first thing I did this patch was devastate some poor lobby with that jet, and then make a video explaining why those haters were hilariously wrong. So join me as I take this Finnish F-18C and finish off this lobby 37-1. And pulling that off with a jet on the same day it was released has got to be some sort of record. Now, if you're wondering, 37-1, how'd you get shot down? Well, actually I wasn't. I landed and they blew me up on the runway. Yeah, after I killed the first few dozen enemy players, some of them really wanted revenge. Yeah, so despite all the naysayers have to say, this jet is terrifyingly good. And I actually took one look at it when it was still in the dev server and was like, that thing's gonna be so overpowered. This is gonna be the surprise star of the update. Because like, it's actually really good, but people are just not gonna know how to use it. It's gonna be a free video. I haven't fully messed around with all of the new planes added this patch yet, because the patch like just dropped. But unless one of those new planes turns out to be freakishly good in a way I don't know about, then this specific variant of the F-18 is the best jet in the game at the moment, at least for air-to-air stuff. It has no air-to-ground ordnance whatsoever. Like, if you want to kill a ground target with this thing, you either need to shoot it with your air-to-air cannon, or you need to fly your jet into it kamikaze style. Now, the main criticism of the Finnish F-18C focuses on the fact that it doesn't get HMD, while the American F-18C does. But that's not a criticism, that's actually winds up being a crucial advantage. Because, and this sentence is going to sound very strange, but the lack of HMD is actually a major advantage because the F-18 is much better when using ACM, and ACM works better if your jet doesn't have HMD. Now, if you nerd out on radar and War Thunder, what I just said essentially constitutes heresy. Like, first, how can ACM be better than HMD? And second, jets with HMD still have ACM, so why does not having HMD make your ACM work better? Like, how does that make sense? Yeah, so the answer to the first question is that that's a skill issue, and the answer to the second one is that that's a game design issue. Now, if you've seen my JF-17 video and you're like, oh, is this the ACM doom loop trick? Yes, it is. It is that thing. It's that trick. The Finnish F-18C is freakishly good at that trick. And speaking of skill issues, while I was juggling all these targets, I screwed up a short-range missile shot on this F-20 here, and he managed to dodge it and get within gun range. He doesn't kill me, but he does manage to damage me. Man, that guy came within an inch of saving his team from being featured on YouTube. But he didn't quite get me, so now his entire team is going to die. One of the chief challenges with flying the F-18 is that it's really slow for 14.0. So you can't just outrun everyone most of the time. With most other 14.0s, you can, and this even works against symmetrical aircraft because of how much energy they'll burn trying to chase you, like turning so they can chase you. So my gut reaction to this battle rating is just outrun people, but that doesn't work with the F-18. So I sort of need to unlearn that muscle memory and figure out how to adjust my tactics a little bit when flying the F-18, but I just haven't done that yet because I literally just got the plane. Now, the F-20 didn't damage my flight control all that much. Like, it did shoot off part of my tail, but that doesn't matter too much. I actually lose the other half of the tail later on in the video and still keep killing people. But as I rolled it in to kill this F-105, I realized that he did manage to kill my radar, so I can't fire any of my spam rams. So I will have to land to repair that. And I'm actually going to fast forward through that because this winds up being a 22-minute game, which is, as far as I can remember, the single longest TTA match I've ever had. I was actually kind of torn between showing you this game or showing you a different game with a 22 kill streak, because this match wound up being bizarre in a number of ways. It's kind of a one-off. While the other match was a lot shorter, and it really clearly showed what makes the F-18 scary as hell if you know what you're doing. I guess I'll just have to make a follow-up video. I guess this is a plane that deserves 2 videos. Now back to the ACM Doom Loop thing. I will go into the nitty-gritty of exactly how to do the ACM Doom Loop trick and why it works in a few minutes. But I'm first going to explain what doing the trick results in so you can better understand the gameplay you're seeing. And I'm also going to explain like the basic pros and cons of the plane so you just have a much stronger idea of what's happening. The TLDR is that the Finnish F-18C can use this trick to lock radar targets really stupid fast while almost completely ignoring chaff. And you can do this without having to fiddle with the radar settings. You can just press one button over and over again. That's the doom loop part of it. So this frees up a lot of brain power you can use for situational awareness. The downside is you have to point your jet directly at the enemy plane because you're using ACM, but if your jet is maneuverable enough that actually having to point at all your targets isn't a problem, then you can still lock onto targets and line up your shots really, really scary fast, like scarier than anyone else who's using HMD can. You still come out ahead. The F-18 is very maneuverable, so it's very good at this. And the F-18 does have a number of weaknesses, but almost all of those weaknesses are compensated for if you just attack really, really quickly. Add in the fact that this thing has a ton of really good missiles, and you have the perfect recipe for a nutso killing spree. Okay, so what are the weaknesses? What are the downsides of the F-18? Well, first and foremost, and I've already alluded to this earlier in the video, but it's slow for a 14.0. Your Rafale, your Eurofighters, your Strike Eagles, they will go about 25% faster than this thing. Now, it's not in terms of, theoretical top speed if you're, taking it into, a test flight, but, that's in terms of, practical speed you can casually achieve in a battle. And one of the mistakes that kept killing me over and over again while I was trying to figure out what made the F-18 tick is that when I did guerrilla tactics, I shoot someone and run away, I kept getting really slow when I was running away, and I was like, this thing has good acceleration, and the energy retention shouldn't be horrifying. Like, what gives? Why am I so slow? And I realized I was missing just the most obvious answer possible. I wasn't fully accounting for how slow it was to begin with. If you're flying an F-18, you have a lot less speed to lose. So if you do lose speed, you're a lot slower than you would anything else. I was subconsciously expecting, Eurofighter or Strike Eagle performance. Like, I was expecting to be as fast as I would be coming away if I was shooting and scooting with one of those. And that's just not the case. And this is one reason why attacking faster is so important. If your plan is to shoot and then scoot to cover, well, the faster you attack, the more of a head start you have when scooting to cover compensates for your low speed. And now here's the part of the match where I had an oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap moment, because I realized I was accidentally flying straight over the enemy airfield, and I didn't notice until I was being shot at by the AAA, which at this altitude is usually a death sentence. When I filmed this match, again, it was just a few hours after I got the plane, and I still had work and stuff when I got it. So I was still in the screw around and figure out how this thing works stage, not the sit down in Steel Club lobbies with it and put it on YouTube stage. So I was just completely winging it this whole match. The camera was running just in case. And that's before I even mentioned that this match is happening on a flat map, and the F-18 is way better on a mountain map. You want to know what's really scary? If you don't know an F-18 is behind a random hill, and then the F-18 pops out, and then simultaneously quick locks everyone on your team with 10 spam rams and 2 A9Ms at medium range. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and splice in some footage of that. This is a different match on a canyon map. So personally, I would not be shocked at all if this specific variant of the F-18 started spamming world records in the near future. Not only can it do the ACM quick lock trick, but the name of the F-18C itself also means it's a lot easier to world record a super down tier. If you manage to get a super down tier with a max BR jet and you just start killing everyone, people will typically feel it's unfair because it is and leave early, which means there's less people to kill. However, this jet has a really similar name to the new American FA-18C Early Premium, which is already ubiquitous in the game. That means it feels a lot less unfair to be killed by the similarly named F-18C, even though it is still totally unfair. Remember, if you want people to keep spawning, the fact that it feels unfair is a bigger issue than it actually being unfair. This is actually one of the many reasons why the pre-nerf Belgian F-16A was really good. People were used to getting killed by F-16A, so they kept respawning when they got killed by an F-16A, even though that one variant was really overpowered. So you not only could you kill everyone, but you'd actually have the targets to kill. And quick side note, you can use the trees to dodge missiles in this game. This is really effective actually, because the hitboxes on the trees will set up the proxy fuses, and the trees themselves will just clutter the radar lock. So this is one really good way to survive on a flat map in the chaos of top-tier arcade when there's like a million missiles flying around. However, it's not entirely foolproof, as I demonstrate right here when I get damaged again. That's how I lost the other half of the tail. Basically, I had thrown so much crap at the missile that was coming for me that I figured I must have dodged it by then. I was just getting a residual phantom warning, and I was wrong. Also, I have seen quite a few players start using the tactic of dodging missiles with trees, and like no one ever used to do that. And man, you guys are annoying when you listen to my advice. I'm glad. Every time I see someone use a tree to dodge a missile, I'm like, ha, they watch my videos. Now, the damaged tail isn't a huge deal at the moment. Basically, my immediate plan is to stay in the air and just suck it up and deal with the damage and work around it. Normally, I wouldn't even consider landing with damage this light, but I just got this plane and I barely know how it handles when it's undamaged, and I'm still trying to learn. So my plan is to land for repairs if I see a safe window, but it's just not an immediate concern. I can deal with it. And I'll have to come back to the whole, damage tail later because the last 2 minutes of this video were just a series of tangents within tangents. So let's get back to explaining the strengths and weaknesses, the F-18C, and then once I finish that, I can finally start explaining the damn radar trick in detail. I don't mean to string you guys along and be like, there's a really cool radar trick and you have to watch 10 minutes of the video to find out what it is, but I just really didn't want to start this video with an explanation of like radar settings and stuff like that tends to murder viewer attention. Also, you wouldn't necessarily know about all the other stuff that was going on in the match with this plane because like I'd have to delay explanation of that, and like most of the action was in the start before the team got snowballed. Anyways, let's get back to the strengths and weaknesses. With regards to speed, yes, this jet is slow compared to other 14.0s. Once you've taken out all the other 14.0s in the lobby and the enemy team starts to snowball a little, that speed advantage starts to vanish and vanishes fast. And not only that, but your weapons will outrange the weapons of the enemy players. So if you're playing TTAA and your team starts to get snowballed a little bit and there's still an F-18 up, Christ, that's the sort of thing that might give you nightmares. That's what's happening in this lobby here. They didn't stop me in time. That F-20 at that one point, though, came really, really close. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. Seriously, just like a little to the right with that gunshot, or like maybe if he still had his AIM 9Ls up or something, he would have saved his whole team from being murdered on YouTube for the lulz. I guess it's my lucky day and their unlucky day. So the second big issue is that the F-18 only has 120 countermeasures, but it also has 12 missiles, so this means it has a really low countermeasure to missile ratio. Gaijin was originally only going to give the F-18's 60 countermeasures, all variants, but they changed it so the two variants that are 14.0, the F-18C and the American F-18C, those ones get 120. So at this point, it's only a little better than the Su-27 in regards to countermeasure to missile ratio. Now, if you saw my recent Su-27 video, you'll know that a low countermeasure to missile ratio is one of those really non-obvious problems that could totally screw you over, and particularly because it makes it really hard to pre-flare. And no, I'm not explaining pre-flaring again here. I just made a video on it like 2-ish weeks ago. It's the Su-27 video. Just go watch that video if you want to see it explained in detail. Anyways, if you watch that video, you might have recalled that the two main ways to work around a low countermeasure to missile ratio are to either use the terrain for cover or to just attack faster. And the Finnish F-18C can attack so stupid fast with its ACM quick locks that the countermeasure to missile ratio winds up not being a problem at all. To make things better, the American missiles on this jet have a much higher practical range than the Russian missiles on the Su-27. If your plane has a survivability problem, the ability to attack from further away is a huge advantage because more range equals more survivability. Now, I finally decided to land for repairs to my tail. I'm near the airfield and I think I see a safe window to land where no one's nearby to kill me. And I'm specifically trying to avoid a player named Kontin. I'm gonna call him Kontin. He was the guy who originally damaged me by sniping me through a forest at long range with a missile, and he's been really hellbent on finishing me off ever since. Like, he really wants me dead. He's been focusing me. Unfortunately, he was hiding near my airfield, and he popped out to ambush me while on the runway. Now, because I've already landed, I can actually repair damage this heavy, so Kontin, of course, slams more missiles into me, and it looks like he was coming in to just empty his gun into the flaming wreckage of my plane at close range as well, but he died before he could do that. This whole thing was basically a kamikaze attack for him, because in order to kill me, he had to run right past my teammates who all had a perfect shot on him, and then for the gun range, he would have to get within AAA cover at low range, and that probably would have killed him, especially this altitude. My teammates were the ones who got him. As it turns out, if you kill a few dozen people in a row without dying, they'll really want revenge. So anyways, I was like, that was fun, so I went ahead and popped a backup, and now those poor people have to start from scratch and kill me all over again. And they're not going to be able to do that. I'm going to kill every single last one of them and wipe their whole team off the face of the earth before that happens. And that's not a threat or a promise. That's a spoiler alert, actually. Okay, so let's finally explain this wacky radar trick involving ACM and not HMD, like what gives. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, there's a skill issue half of it and there's a game design issue half of it. Let's start with the skill issue half of it. So HMD lets you lock a radar target just by looking at it. You don't need to point the nose of your plane straight at the enemy plane to lock them with the radar. With ACM, you do have to point your plane straight at the enemy plane to lock them with your radar, because there isn't any other super obvious difference between ACM and HMD than just you don't have to point at the guy. Most people just assume that HMD is a straight line upgrade over ACM, but there's actually trade-offs between the two that aren't obvious. ACM is much better at picking targets out of clutter, and a lot of people don't realize this. So if there's multiple targets or a guy dropping a ton of Jeff, ACM will tend to get you a faster, cleaner radar lock than HMD. In my opinion, in both arcade and realistic, the ability to pick targets out of clutter tends to be a better advantage than being able to lock targets you aren't directly pointing at. That's the basic trade-off between these two modes. This is aggravated by the fact that even when using HMD, you still need to at least generally point your plane at the enemy plane, otherwise your missile will bleed all its energy when it flies off the rack and you won't hit the guy. There are some exceptions to this though, like if you're in a really close range dogfight, making some wild off-bore R-73 shot using HMD mode is actually really useful, but ACM is still going to be much better for a plane such as the F-18 because it doesn't have any close range missiles. The AIM-9M and the AIM-120 are really medium range missiles at best, and the F-18 is very maneuverable, so you can easily point it at whatever you want. That's not a trouble. You know, it's not a boat like the Tornado. You know, if the Tornado F3 Elite, for example, had HMD, I'd probably use it. So that's why ACM is actually good in some circumstances. Now, why is it good to not have HMD? That's the game design issue. But before I answer that question, I need to go on a quick tangent about the gameplay here, because something really subtle but interesting is happening, and most of you won't pick up on it unless I explain it. And again, I don't mean to string you along, it's just there's a lot of interesting chaos going on in this match. So, you guys remember Conteen, the guy who was like rolling really hard on me and managed to kill me when I landed? So, Conteen has respawned in a new plane. He did this a few minutes ago, and I know he's in a plane, but I just can't find it, and I'm getting weird radar locks from weird directions. This has been going on for a few minutes. And specifically, he's in an F-16A. You know, this is one reason I always check the statistics page. I want to know who is in what plane so I can figure out what they can and or will be doing, so I can plan around that. In other words, it's pretty clear that he's hiding somewhere in the map where I can't see him, and he's trying to ambush me with Fox 1 radar missiles. And that tracked perfectly, because that is by far the best way for him to kill me right now. Like, if I was trying to kill me, that is what I'd be trying to do right now. Even though this is a pretty flat map, it's also a really big map with some hills and trees that people can hide behind. So, you know, people can hide here. Like, you know, that guy did ambush me on this map just a few minutes ago. You know, he knows what he's doing. And so it's a problem if I can't find him. Because I have Fox 3s, if I see him coming, I can just shoot and turn around because my radar missiles are fire and forget. His aren't. So he has to fly towards my missile while I'm flying away from his if we ever get a shootout. That basically means I can't lose a long-range shootout. The best case scenario for him is that it's a draw, unless he ambushes me. Now, because I haven't been able to find him, I decided to change tactics and I fly out over the ocean. I can outrange all of his teammates as well as him, so I can just snipe them from the ocean, and there's no terrain for him to hide behind. Like, the ocean doesn't have any terrain he can use to sneak behind to ambush me, it's just a flat sheet of water. So basically, due to how the teams have been snowballed, he can't fight me over water. So all I have to do is sit out over the ocean, and no one can get me. I thought that was cool enough to interrupt the radar explanation you guys have been waiting like 15 minutes for. So let's get back to explaining why not having HMD is sometimes an advantage. So if you turn your radar off, and then you hit the lock button while it's off, your radar will boot up into the default mode. If your radar has HMD, its default mode will be HMD. If your radar doesn't have HMD, but it does have ACM, then ACM is default mode. Basically, there's a priority list of which mode gets to be the default mode, and ACM comes after HMD in the priority list. And as will become pretty obvious in about a second, that's a really bad way to design this. You want to have it be the other way around. So if you're in ACM mode, your radar will turn off if you unlock it. If you then lock it while it's off, it will boot up in the default mode. If the default mode is ACM, then you can just spam the lock button on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off, and your radar gets stuck in an ACM doom loop, and that is what lets you quick lock people, because you're spamming the radar setting that's really good at cutting through chaff and clutter, and you can lock people and kill them really quickly. And because you only have to press one button to do this, your radar becomes really simple to manage. It's just a one-button rotation. You don't even need to think about your radar settings unless your target is outside of ACM range, which it usually won't be. You know how chaotic top tier is? Yeah, not having to fiddle with your radar frees up a lot of your brain power to do literally anything else, such as pay attention to the madness around you. However, if your default mode is HMD and you have ACM mode, you unlock it, turns your radar off, you relock it, it goes in default mode, it just defaults back in HMD. Now what's funny is that unlocking someone in HMD mode doesn't kick you out of HMD mode or turn your radar off or anything. It just means you unlock the guy. It's simple. It's self-explanatory. It just makes sense. So this whole Doom Loop quick lock stuff has absolutely no effect on someone who actually has and wants to use HMD. So whether or not HMD is actually an upgrade for your jet depends on whether or not HMD is better than ACM mode. Because no matter what, you're only going to be able to spam radar locks with one of those two modes. On the F-18, ACM mode is better, so the Finnish version of the jet with the obsolete radar is actually better than the American one. So clearly, if Gaijin moved ACM above HMD in the priority list for who got to be the default radar mode, that would make far more sense. Now, I would just ask Gaijin directly to change this, but last time I asked Gaijin to make a simple fix to the radar, I got burned pretty hard because they got confused and removed the fixed radar gun sight from the game, and that didn't even fix the original problem. They did sort of add back the green circle to some planes this patch finally, but only to the ones that also have the ballistic lead indicator system, which, if you followed the original saga, that's basically the dumbest outcome humanly possible from this whole mess. Now, if you're like, hey, wait, hold on, isn't that green circle to help you aim missiles, not guns? Well, you can use a missile lead to help you aim your guns in this game, because at close range, a missile lead will only be offset from the gun lead in one dimension, but it accurately solves for the other two dimensions. Like, this isn't something you write into the code of the game, it's just a mathematical consequence of how it works, and that's what confuses the hell out of everyone about it. To greatly oversimplify, the up, down, and side to side will be the same, but the back and forth won't be. So you just have to adjust your aim in that one dimension, and presto, you can use a radar lead to snipe people with your gun. And it was a lot of fun when that was in the game. It was something you could do regularly in practice, but not something that was crazy overpowered. It's a shame they took it out of the game. Like, Gaijin, if you're ever confused about how something in arcade works in your own game, you have my contact info. Just like hit me up and I'll answer your questions for you about your own game. And I'm not saying that as a content creator, I'm saying that as probably the only top tier arcade player any of you have a personal email address for. Another quick side note about background footage. As you can see here, locking someone up with an AIM 120 is often faster than using an AIM 9M, even at close range, if you have the the quick locks, which is like the complete opposite of how that's supposed to work. It's totally inverted. That's how fast you can lock your radar onto targets with this plane. Now, a few months ago, I did actually put out a sort of a PSA where I promised to feature any fan of my videos if they figured out a practical way to spam ACM on an HMD jet. Someone did come forward with a 2-button setup that I featured a while back. Like, it's pretty good. It's not as good as, like, the real thing, but, it's pretty good. But back in December, a fan named Reborn B reached out and basically suggested I could get most of what I wanted if I instead bound the HMD lock to the scroll wheel. That basically makes it more spammable, so it just brute forces its way through the clutter a little easier. Unfortunately, I didn't go over his feedback until January because I was on vacation, and I did it right after I did the Kafir 10 videos, and I haven't both filmed and edited a video with an HMD jet since then, because, Dave's season was over. So Reborn B did legitimately have a very simple, very useful suggestion, and he definitely deserves a shout out, but I also knew it was probably going to be months before I actually, had a chance to mention it. It was even remotely relevant, and I could also, actually demonstrate it. And I figured I'd do it with the F-18, but then they released an F-18 with ACM, so I'm like, all right, the guy's waited long enough. I figured I'd give him a shout out now, and then give him another shout out again once I actually use a relevant plane. He's waited long enough. And speaking of people who deserve shout outs, my decoy squadron for this match is Heck V, which was suggested to me by a fan. I joined the squadron almost immediately before I filmed this match because my previous cover got burned. So my decoy squadron for this match was almost Berea, and it got burned like just a few matches before this. I kind of feel bad about not featuring them. Also, I'd like to thank my repeat super thanksters, Stygian85, who drops in every once in a while to just give me 50 bucks, which is awesome. I'm never going to complain about that. Go you, Stygian85. And I'd also like to thank Ducky Andre, who basically always gives me like 10 pounds sterling whenever I make a video, so that's neat. I do not actually offer any sort of paid subscription or premium membership, but Ducky Andre is buying it anyways. So anyways, the entire enemy team is now dead. I killed it. It's gone. I don't know if they enjoyed Patch Day, but I sure as hell did. This Patch Day is awesome. I love the new F-18. Please like and comment to feed the algorithm, and remember, if you subscribe and ring the bell, you won't need to remember how to spell AOLIPay next time you want to watch one of my videos.